Think, every single day, without exception, your mind is at work. It is either working for you or working against you. There is no neutral ground. Think. And here's the secret most people overlook: just 30 minutes a day, spent intentionally, can completely redirect the course of your life. Think. Imagine your mind as a garden. If you don't deliberately choose what seeds to plant, weeds will grow automatically. Worry, fear, anger, doubt, these are the weeds of the mind. They don't need permission, they grow in neglect. Think. But when you give your mind 30 minutes of focused nourishment, of intentional planting, you start changing what grows. And eventually, think, what grows inside you begins to reflect outside you. Most people live their lives reacting. Something happens, they feel something. They spiral. One bad comment ruins their mood. One rejection shatters their confidence. Why? Because they haven't learned to tend to their mental garden. Think. But those who sit with themselves even for 30 minutes a day, without distraction, without noise, start to notice something. Think. The weeds don't grow as fast. In fact, with time, they grow weaker. And new seeds, seeds of hope, seeds of clarity, seeds of vision, begin to sprout. The key is not in doing 1,000 things at once. Think. The key is in the deliberate act of being present with yourself every single day. That presence becomes power. When you sit quietly, think. Even if only for 30 minutes, you begin to take control back. Think. You stop being a puppet pulled by emotional strings and start becoming the master of your thoughts. And let me be very clear. Think. This is not about motivation. This is about mental discipline. It's about realizing that your mind, left unattended, think, will replay the worst memories, the deepest fears, the most painful possibilities. Think. But when you step in, when you decide to show up daily for even half an hour, you interrupt the pattern. You create space. And in that space, think, you can choose what to water. Imagine waking up and instead of diving into social media, the news, or the chaos of the world, think you give yourself 30 minutes, no notifications, no opinions. Just you, your thoughts, and your intention. You could journal, think, write down what you're grateful for, visualize the life you want, or simply breathe and observe your thoughts. These are not small actions. Think. These are life-altering practices disguised as simplicity. Every time you do it, you're building roots, deep roots. So when storms come, think, and they always do, you don't fall. You stand. Negative emotions are part of being human. Think. But they are not meant to drive the vehicle of your life. They are passengers. And when you give your mind intentional time, think, you start recognizing them for what they are, visitors, not permanent residents. Think. You start seeing that the anger you feel isn't about the moment. It's about the unprocessed moments before it. Think. That the fear you feel isn't real. It's a projection of a past hurt into a future illusion. But without time to reflect, think, you'll keep repeating, and repetition is powerful. That's why 30 minutes matter. Think. That's why this seemingly small act holds such enormous power. Think of the mind like a lens. When you don't clean it daily, it gets blurry, smudged by stress, fogged by distraction, cracked by comparison. But when you dedicate time, real focused time, you clean that lens. Think. You see your life differently. You start spotting opportunities where you once saw limitations. Think. You start realizing that most of the things you fear never come true. Think. You start noticing that the world outside is simply echoing the world inside. And when the inside shifts, the echo changes. It's not magic. Think. It's mechanics. You wake up every day with the chance to condition your inner world. But most people ignore it. Think. They wait for circumstances to improve before they feel better. That's backwards. Think. You don't wait for the weather to change before you decide to be warm. You put on a coat. Likewise, think. You don't wait for life to get better before you work on your mind. You work on your mind, and your life begins to reflect the clarity, think, the strength, and the peace you've cultivated. People chase miracles, breakthroughs, signs. But the real miracle is consistency. Think. The real breakthrough is learning to sit with yourself every day and direct your thoughts. You are not a victim of what you feel. Think. You are not a prisoner of what happened. But if you don't claim those 30 minutes, you'll keep reliving the same cycles, the same arguments, the same doubts, the same what ifs. 30 minutes a day is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Think. It's not a motivational trend, it's mental hygiene. The best part, it's available to everyone. You don't need a perfect schedule. Think. You don't need money, permission, or a plan. You just need a decision. A decision that today you will show up for your mind. That today, think, you will sit in silence instead of noise. That today, you will stop feeding your fears and start watering your future. Think. And as those 30 minutes compound, something incredible starts to happen. Your energy changes, your language shifts, your posture straightens. You no longer look for validation. You become your own source of certainty. You no longer spiral into anxiety. You rise into calm. Think. You no longer question your worth. You see it clearly because you've tended to your inner world. Because you've made it a habit to do so. Think. Because 30 minutes isn't just a window of time, it's a doorway to transformation. The human mind is built on repetition. Think. Every belief you hold, every habit you practice, every emotional response you experience. These are not random. Think. They are the result of repetition. Think about a path in a forest. The more it's walked on, the clearer it becomes. It starts to stand out. Think. Becomes easier to travel, and eventually, it's the only path you see. Your thoughts operate the same way. What you think over and over again becomes the dominant path in your mind. Think. This is why negative feelings persist, not because they are stronger than you, but because they've been repeated so many times. Think. They've become the default. But the beautiful truth is you can rewire that. You can create a new path. Think. And all it takes is 30 minutes a day of focused, intentional repetition. Most people allow their mind to repeat the same disempowering thoughts. Think. I'm not good enough. This always happens to me. Nothing ever works out. They don't say these things aloud. Think. But they think them constantly. And the subconscious mind, which cannot distinguish between what is real and what is imagined, accepts those thoughts as truth. It doesn't argue, it records. And then it manifests situations, emotions, think, and actions to match what it's been fed. This is the silent cycle of self-sabotage. Think, and it continues because no one teaches us how to interrupt it. But with deliberate repetition, daily, think even for 30 minutes, you can start feeding your mind something new. And when you do that, your entire inner reality begins to change. Think. Repetition is how language is learned. It's how muscle is built. It's how confidence is grown. No one becomes fluent in anything overnight. Think. They practice. They rehearse. And yet, when it comes to mindset, most people hope for a quick fix. Think. They want one good day to erase years of negativity. But that's not how the mind works. It works through layering. Think. Through constant reinforcement. Through structured repetition. So if you want to change how you feel, if you want to overcome anxiety, think, insecurity, or hopelessness, you need to start repeating new thoughts daily with intention. You don't need to do it all day, just 30 focused minutes. But those minutes must be sacred, protected, prioritized. Think. When you dedicate 30 minutes a day to mental repetition, affirmations, visualizations, empowering self-talk, think, or silent reflection, you begin to override the old programming. It won't feel natural at first. In fact, it may feel fake. Your mind may resist. That's expected. The current thought patterns have been playing on loop for years. Of course, they won't go quietly. Think. But just like water eventually carves through rock, repetition eventually reshapes even the most hardened beliefs. Think. The key is not to believe it immediately. The key is to keep showing up, even when it feels awkward, even when it feels like it's not working. Think, because it is working. Quietly, beneath the surface, every repetition is a vote for the person you are becoming. Think. One of the most powerful tools you can use during these 30 minutes is visualization. Think. Close your eyes and vividly imagine yourself as the person you want to be. Feel it. Speak like them. Walk like them. Think. Decide how they would respond to the situations that usually trigger your negative emotions. This is not make-believe. This is mental rehearsal. Think, and it is backed by neuroscience. The brain does not differentiate between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. Think. That means every time you visualize success, peace, or confidence, you are literally training your brain to expect and accept those states. Think. Pair that with affirmations. Not the kind you just repeat with no emotion, but the kind that you say with certainty, with power. I am calm. I am focused. I create my life. Speak them out loud. Write them down. Feel the vibration of the words. Each time you repeat them, think. You're installing a new truth into your subconscious. And the more you repeat them, the stronger that truth becomes. Eventually, think, it replaces the old noise. The doubt gets quieter. The fear weakens. The anger dissolves. Think, because you've created a stronger signal. A new frequency that drowns out the static of the past. Think, even journaling can be a form of repetition. Write your new truths, your goals, your intentions. Then write them again. And again, think, let your hand teach your mind. Let the words become anchors. Over time, this daily 30-minute ritual becomes the most important part of your day. Think, it becomes the space where you rewire your mental programming and take back control. And when you do this consistently, think, your emotional responses change. You don't react the same way, you don't spiral, you pause, you observe, you choose, think. That is the real power of repetition. It turns unconscious reaction into conscious response. Many people underestimate this because it seems too simple. But repetition is the mechanism behind everything extraordinary. Think, musicians practice scales, athletes drill moves, leaders rehearse speeches. Think, and if you want to lead your own life, if you want to be in charge of how you feel, what you think, and where you're going, you must practice your new identity daily. The old self was built through years of unconscious repetition. Think, the new self must be built the same way, but with intention, with clarity, and with belief. You already have the tool. Think, the time is not the issue. The decision is, 30 minutes a day is enough. It doesn't just change your mood. It changes your mind. Think, and when your mind changes, everything else follows. Discipline is the invisible bridge between desire and achievement. Most people want peace, think, growth, confidence, and clarity, but they don't show up for it. They wait for a perfect day, for the right motivation, think, for someone to pull them out of the mess they feel trapped in. But transformation doesn't wait. It doesn't knock on your door. Think, it arrives when you decide deeply and unapologetically to create structure where chaos once lived. Think, 30 minutes of daily discipline can change everything. Not because of how much time it is, but because of what it represents. Think, your commitment to your own evolution. It is a signal that you are no longer interested in being pushed around by your circumstances, emotions, think, or past. Most people think of discipline as harsh or restrictive, but true discipline is freedom. Think, it's the ability to act with intention instead of impulse. It's what allows you to make decisions that are aligned with who you want to be. Think, rather than being driven by who you've been. And here's the truth. When your emotions are in control, your life is not. Think, discipline is the antidote to emotional chaos. Think, when you dedicate just 30 minutes every single day to doing something purposeful, whether it's reading, journaling, meditating, reflecting, think, or simply sitting in silence, you begin reclaiming authority over your internal world. You become the one in charge. People often ask, think, is 30 minutes really enough? The answer is yes, if it's done with full presence, if it's done with seriousness. Think, it's not about how long you spend, it's about how sincerely you engage. When you carve out that space each day, think, you are training your mind to listen to you. You are no longer the passenger of your moods, your fears, or your anger. Think, you are the one holding the wheel. And when that happens, even your body starts to respond differently. Your posture changes. Think, your breathing slows, your nervous system relaxes. You begin to experience the sensation of internal control. Think, That control doesn't come from avoiding life's challenges. It comes from being disciplined enough to rise above their emotional pull. Think. Discipline doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean never missing a day or never slipping. It means coming back again and again. Think. It means honoring the process more than the result. Some days you'll feel resistance. You won't want to sit in silence. Think. You won't want to reflect or read or think, but that's when it matters most. Think. Discipline is built in the moments you want to quit but don't. That is where strength is born. Every time you show up despite the discomfort, think, you're proving to yourself that your commitment is stronger than your excuses. And that proof accumulates. It builds self-respect. Think. It builds trust with yourself. And once you trust yourself, everything changes. This world is loud. The digital noise, the mental clutter, the emotional triggers, they come at you nonstop. Without discipline, you absorb it all. You react. You scroll. You worry. You compare. Think. But with discipline, you create a sacred pause. A protected space where none of that enters. Think. Where you reconnect with who you are and what matters. This daily space becomes your anchor. Think. It becomes the place you return to so you don't get swept away by the storms of the external world. Think. It becomes the foundation for your mindset, your energy, your decisions. And that foundation is built through consistency, not convenience. Think. When you choose to show up for 30 minutes each day, even when life is messy, even when you're tired, think. Even when your mood tells you to skip it, you are redefining who you are. You are declaring that you are not a slave to your emotions. Think. You are the architect of your reality. You are designing your life, not drifting through it. And each session, each practice, think, each moment of showing up strengthens that identity. It becomes part of you. Not something you do, but something you are. A disciplined person. Think. A focused mind. A calm presence. These are not traits you're born with. They are habits you create. Think. Sometimes people look for instant results. They want the anxiety to disappear, the overthinking to stop, the fear to vanish. Think. But that's not how it works. The results are subtle at first. You might feel a bit more clear-headed, a little more calm. Think. You might notice you're not triggered by the same things. You start to respond rather than react. You start to pause before you speak. Think. That pause is power. That awareness is discipline in motion. And as you continue, that pause becomes presence. That presence becomes wisdom. That wisdom becomes influence, not over others, but over yourself. And that's where true strength lies. Think. The person who cannot sit with themselves for 30 minutes without distraction is not free. They are chained to the world outside of them. Think. But the person who can create that space daily, even in the middle of chaos, is unshakable. They walk into the world grounded, clear, think, and untouchable. Not because life is easy, but because they are disciplined enough to remain centered when it's not. Think. That discipline becomes your secret weapon. It becomes the quiet power that fuels your growth, your resilience, your peace. Think. And that power is built brick by brick, day by day. In those 30 minutes you commit to yourself. You may not notice it immediately. Think. But one day something will happen, something that would have broken you before. And you'll stand there, still, calm, clear-eyed. Think. And you'll realize you're not who you used to be. You've changed. Quietly, consistently. Through the discipline of 30 daily minutes. Think. Most people go through life believing that what they feel is who they are. They think if they feel angry, they are an angry person. Think. If they feel sad, they are broken. If they feel anxious, they are weak. But emotions are not your identity. They are experiences. They are temporary. They are signals, not definitions. And when you take 30 minutes each day to sit with yourself, free from distraction, think. Something remarkable happens. You begin to notice that there is a space between what you feel and who you are. That space is where power begins. Think. That space is where transformation lives. You start to see that emotions are like weather. They pass, they shift. But you, the observer, remain. Think. When you don't take time to sit in silence, You get caught in the storm. You mistake the thunder for your voice. Think. You identify with the rain instead of the roots. Negative emotions become your truth, your story, your identity. Think. But the moment you make space, even for just 30 minutes, you start peeling away that illusion. Think. You begin to watch your emotions like you would watch clouds drifting across the sky. You realize, I am not this fear. I am feeling fear. Think, I am not this anger. I am experiencing anger. Think, and that shift from identification to observation is what separates those who are owned by emotion from those who own their emotional life. Think, in those 30 minutes, when you sit still and allow your thoughts to rise without reacting, you see the chaos for what it really is. Think, a collection of old programs. You realize that many of the emotions you feel aren't even yours. They were handed to you by childhood. Think, by trauma, by the world. Some were picked up from what others said to you. Some were born in moments of confusion or rejection. Think, but you've carried them as if they define you. Until now. Until you start this practice of simply being, simply observing, not judging, not fixing, just being with what's inside. And here's what people don't realize. Think, most emotional suffering doesn't come from the feeling itself. It comes from resisting the feeling, from pushing it down. Think, from trying to ignore it or suppress it or escape it. But feelings don't disappear when you avoid them. They wait. They build. Think, they grow roots in the dark, and then they show up when you least expect them. In your relationships, in your health, in your energy. Think, in your choices. But when you give them space, when you let them surface without judgment, in those 30 quiet minutes, they begin to move. Think, they begin to loosen. They begin to heal. Because the truth is, emotions need acknowledgement, not avoidance. They need space, not solutions. This is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming emotionally intelligent. It's about learning to respond instead of react. Think, when you take time daily to observe your emotional patterns, you start recognizing triggers before they take over. You start noticing. Think, this isn't about what just happened. This is about what I've been carrying. You begin to understand that most of your emotional reactions are echoes from old wounds, not present truth. And when you realize that, you can choose differently. You can pause instead of lash out. Think, you can reflect instead of shut down. That's real power, not control over others, but mastery over yourself. Think, people spend so much time trying to fix the external. They change jobs, change relationships, change locations. Think, hoping it will change how they feel. But the real shift happens internally, and it begins with presence, with awareness. Think, with the ability to sit with what's uncomfortable and simply see it. Not as a threat, not as proof of failure, but as energy passing through. Think, and with each day of practice, those emotions lose their grip. Not because they're gone forever, but because you've become bigger than them. Think, you've created enough space inside you to contain them without being consumed by them. When you give yourself 30 minutes to feel, to reflect, think, to sit in quiet observation, you begin to change the relationship you have with yourself. You stop running, you stop hiding, you start trusting. Think, you start listening, and in that space, real insight emerges. You begin to understand why certain patterns repeat, why certain emotions stick. Think, why certain reactions are so strong. And with understanding comes healing. Not all at once, not with fireworks, but slowly, steadily, silently. Think, like a wound closing, like a scar fading. It doesn't need to be dramatic to be transformational. Over time, that 30-minute practice becomes your emotional gym. You build awareness, you build tolerance, you build resilience. Think, you begin to recognize emotional waves, not as threats, but as opportunities to center yourself even deeper. Think, the things that used to break you start to bounce off. The comments, the criticism, the comparisons, they don't sting the same. Think, because you've seen the root. You've faced the shadow. You've made peace with discomfort. Think, and you've discovered the stillness underneath the storm. This is the difference between reacting to life and responding to it. Think, reacting is automatic. it's conditioned, it's unconscious. But responding is intentional, it's grounded, it's born out of clarity. Think, and that clarity is cultivated in silence, not once a week, not occasionally, but daily. Think, even if all you do is sit and breathe and notice what's rising, even if your mind wanders, even if the discomfort creeps in. Especially then, think, because that's when you grow. That's when you take your power back. That's when you remember that you are not the voice in your head. Think, you are the one hearing it. You are not the wave. You are the ocean beneath it. Think, every massive transformation starts with a seemingly insignificant decision. One small shift, one quiet choice. Think, one consistent action. That's all it takes to initiate a ripple that changes the direction of your entire life. Think, most people wait for something dramatic, a sign, a crisis, a breakthrough. But destiny isn't changed in loud, chaotic moments. It's changed in silence, in stillness, in the decision to take 30 minutes each day and use them deliberately. Think. Small choices like this feel too ordinary to matter, but that's the deception. What looks small in the moment becomes monumental over time. Think, you don't notice the shift at first, but it's happening quietly, deeply, persistently. When you commit to 30 minutes daily, think, it doesn't just shift your schedule, it shifts your identity. You go from someone who's stuck in their emotions, think, someone who's waiting for the right time, to someone who takes responsibility. Think, the act of showing up consistently rewires how you see yourself. You begin to carry yourself differently, think, respond differently. It's not because the world has changed. It's because you have. That change started with a simple choice, think, to use 30 minutes a day not for distraction, not for escape, but for direction. Imagine a compass. Think, every degree it shifts points the traveler to an entirely different destination over time. The same is true with your life. Think, that one small daily act of reading, writing, reflecting, or visualizing is not just a habit, it's a course correction. Without it, you drift. With it, you redirect. And you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent. Think, the person who moves forward slowly every day will go farther than the one who sprints inconsistently. Consistency builds momentum, think, and momentum builds identity. You start identifying as someone who honors their mind, who values their time, who walks with purpose. Think, there's a certain quiet power that builds when you know you're doing something today that your future self will thank you for. Think, while others are lost in distraction, noise, and emotional reaction, you're carving a path. You're investing, not spending. 30 minutes a day becomes a seed. At first, the soil looks the same, but beneath it, roots are forming. That growth is invisible for a while, and that's what causes most people to quit. They mistake the silence for failure. Think, but those who understand the power of compound actions don't stop just because they don't see results immediately. They trust the process. They trust the pattern. They trust the principle that small choices, done deliberately, always create large changes. Think, and this principle applies to everything. Your emotional health, your mindset, your confidence, your productivity, your goals. Think, if you want to build emotional strength, start by sitting in silence daily and observing your thoughts. If you want clarity, think. Write your thoughts down for 30 minutes every morning. If you want to shift your mindset, read something uplifting, something powerful, think. Something that speaks to the vision you're building. It's not about changing everything at once. Think. It's about doing one thing intentionally every single day until it becomes who you are. The repetition transforms the action into identity. Think, there is power in decision. There is even more power in sustained action. Most people live in emotional loops. Think, they feel stuck because they keep repeating yesterday. The same thought, the same fear, the same frustration. But one small, consistent act interrupts the loop. It sends a new signal. It opens a new possibility. And that possibility grows the longer you stay committed. Think, the first time you sit for 30 minutes and think about your future, you may feel restless. The second time, distracted. The third time, think uncertain. But by the 10th time something clicks, you begin to feel focused, present, capable, aware. You begin to see yourself differently. Think. Change isn't an event, it's a process. And processes are built through repetition, through rhythm, through habits. Think. Every time you choose to spend 30 minutes investing in your inner world, think you are separating yourself from the masses who are running on autopilot. You are stepping out of survival and into creation. Think you are becoming the cause, not the effect, the leader, not the follower. And the more you do it, the less you need to rely on motivation. Think discipline takes over, and with discipline, the gap between who you are and who you want to be starts to close. Think this daily practice becomes a sacred contract, a promise to yourself that no matter how chaotic the world gets, think, no matter how loud the noise becomes, you will return to this space. You will do the inner work. You will lead yourself. And over time, think, this shapes not just your mind, but your circumstances. People will begin to notice the calm in your voice, the sharpness in your focus. Think the strength in your presence. And they'll wonder what changed. They'll ask what you did differently. Think. But they won't see it was a choice made long ago, repeated daily, never dramatic, always deliberate. That is the power of small choices. Think. That is how 30 minutes becomes a new reality. That is how destinies are rewritten. Not with a single leap, think, but with countless steady steps taken in the quiet moments when no one is watching. Think. That's when transformation is born, when the world is silent, but your soul is working.